Hi everybody, welcome to Dynamo Sword Channel. I'm David, and today on Dynamo Sword Channel I will be discussing some unfortunate news that you might have already heard of or might not have, and that is Hanwei Forge is shutting down. Now, if you've been a sword collector or enthusiast for, at least the last decade, there's basically three big names you'd know or be aware of in the sword manufacturing market. In the higher end, there's Avalon Swords, known for their high-end European sword replicas. And then there's a few more of the budget guys like, Windlass Steelcrafts, who offer budget to mid-tier European, American, Middle Eastern, replica swords. And then there is Hanwei, known for budget to high-end Japanese, European, Chinese, Middle East, and Middle Eastern sword replicas, as well as a few unique models from, other, various cultures around the globe. Now, Hanwei was founded in 1991 and was the project of Mr. Paul Chin, who primarily focused on offering Chinese and Japanese style replicas of swords for practical use in the dojo setting. This cemented Hanwei as both a reliable and reputable manufacturer of swords, while also garnering attention for the functional reproduction sword market, which at the time primarily consisted of display-oriented replicas, made of stainless steel. Hanwei Forge's biggest claim to notoriety is, of course, their impressive line of Japanese sword replicas, and that has been their focus in where their highest attention to detail has been. Their Japanese line spans all price tiers of production swords, offering various katana, wakizashi, tanto, ninjato, and the occasional unique Japanese-styled weapon such as spears, and of course even full suits of armor. Later on, under their Cos Iberia brand, Hanwei offered, European-styled swords. Now, these were primarily of a cruder finish with less focus on fit and finish and or historical accuracy, though they were accredited for being tough as nails and extremely durable, but of course, not the best handling and definitely not the most attractive. Now, soon after, they started focusing more on historical accuracy and proper handling and delivered many European models of greater acclaim, such as their line of rapier, as well as a few more detailed medieval designs, such as their highly acclaimed sword of Alberich and their Scottish Highland Claymore. Now, their European line was further improved on adding various Viking style swords, as well as a partnership in the late 2000s with renowned swordsmith Michael Tinker Pierce to offer production variants of Michael's designs under the Hanwei Tinker line of European swords. These proved highly popular, and a mix of their budget pricing and quality, including their durability and function, made them a mainstay for the sword enthusiast community, even still to this day. Unfortunately, the worst happened to Hanwei after this successful venture. In the spring of 2011, their main factory and forge caught fire, destroying the building and nearly bankrupting the company. It wasn't until 2014 that Hanwei was back into production, but due to financial losses as well as the continuing rise in inflation, there was a hefty price hike in many of their products that did, to an extent leave a sour taste in the mouths of many former fans and supporters of Hanwei. But Hanwei still continued to make swords and not only offer new lines and models, but also improve the fit and finish and quality of other models in their line. They also capitalized on acquiring a few other brands in later years, such as Generation 2, originally a manufacturer based in the Philippines, rebranding it to Legacy Arms. We also saw the creation of Dragon King, founded by longtime Hanwei smith and designer Frenchie Chen, offering a new brand of quality katana, as well as a new brand of European swords under the Kingston Arm brand, which was done in collaboration with renowned swordsmith Angus Trim, adding to the already robust Cos Iberia Hanwei umbrella. This is what makes their closing so surprising and unfortunate. As I mean, honestly, you would think a company as large and invested as Hanwei would be, of course, thriving. Though anyone who is aware of the sword industry of late would understand that things aren't so great from a market standpoint, as sales have diminished and market share amongst the various brands and manufacturers has dwindled to an all-time low. A lot of this has to do with an increase in prices over the last decade, with much of that having to do with wider competition coming from the open long quan direct buyers market, but also due to increased regulations on shipping and sword ownership around the world. Now, regarding my personal opinions on Hanwei, I own quite a few swords from them and have always had a fondness for them that has grown over the years after an initial distaste for the brand in my early years of collecting. Now, my first ever Hanwei sword was purchased way back in 2003 and was a Hanwei practical katana. Now, initially, I loved this sword and felt it was very impressive, especially for its sub $300 price point. But unfortunately, in under a year's time of owning it, I did begin lamenting a lot of the shortcomings the fit and finish held. For example, its glued suka, its thicker suka shape, commonly known as, it with sword enthusiasts, they call the sukas the Hanwei axe handle, and the plastic fake Samagawa, which didn't do much for gripping the Ito, and the Ito itself was kind of this rougher suede that wasn't alternating and just kind of wasn't finished well. Now, after many years of just kind of ignoring Hanwei because of kind of being disgruntled, my second purchase was actually from the Hanwei Tinker line, and I was so impressed by its fit, finish, and handling. It definitely made me second guess my distrust in the brand. I mean, for a while, as I mentioned, I did hold off on buying anything from Hanwei, and after the fire, I wasn't impressed at all by the price increase. Even though now I see it as an unfortunate circumstance they had to initiate to recoup, it's still, I mean, some of their swords went up almost double. And, that I think kind of hurt them. But at the same time, for guys like me, especially back then, that kind of more focused on budget sword purchases, and kind of staying in that sub $400 market, it was really tough to see a $400 $500 katana, like for example the bamboo mat, jump up to over $1,000. And it was just kind of tough to kind of take, even though I understand the fire definitely caused a lot of that price increase. Now, rolling back, I guess, kind of going through my Hanwei purchases. My next Hanwei purchase was one that, I really had always admired and but never could afford, and that was, the Hanwei Iga Ninja Toe. I actually reviewed it here on the channel, a while back, and honestly, I still believe it is the best sword or best ninja sword on the market regarding, ninja swords. But before, that, I did try out the Dragon King Hana Katana, which, of course, if you've seen, I've also reviewed. I saw it as a cheaper alternative to the Hanwei Orchid Katana, which has similar koshire and kind of, blade shape and design. I've always liked that sword and always wanted it, but again, couldn't see myself paying the, higher end price for it. The next one that I bought, that I sat on the fence for, honestly, many years, after buying that initial, Hanwei Bastard sword, is the one I'm holding now, the Hanwei the Great Sword of War, which, ironically is also, not ironically, is also in my review lineup. This sword has always impressed me as one of the only true type um, 13A swords in the budget market due to it having the proper lanicular cross section, but also with its actual, kind of just general, more historical design and handling. Next was, the one you see up here, the Hanwei Practical Plus Wakizashi, which I did just review as well recently. And then I did purchase the Hanwei Cromwell Mortuary Hilt Sword, which, will be reviewed soon. There are still a few models I hope to collect, as well as models I hope will continue to be available on the market. But it seems like now is definitely the time to buy any Hanwei models, as restocking on many of these models is either not guaranteed or probably won't be confirmed for the foreseeable future. Thankfully for Hanwei as a brand, this isn't fully the end, as the previously mentioned Frenchy Chin of Dragon King does plan to keep the brand name going forward, as well as keeping a selection of Hanwei models in production. This also means brands under Hanwei such as Legacy Arms, Kingston Arms, and Dragon King will of course be around for the foreseeable future, which is good to hear, as losing them all would be a major loss, to the sword market, and a, kind of a hit to the buyers, buyers like us as well, who still appreciate the consistency and reputation of those brands in the Hanwei family. In closing, this is definitely a sad day for the sword industry, as it is losing one of the staple manufacturers that, of course, have been around for decades, offering swords seen in many films and documentaries, for example, the 2003 film The Last Samurai. So even though we won't be saying goodbye fully thanks to the carryover of Dragon King, I still felt it was worth doing this discussion topic episode in honor and respect for both Paul Chen and his Hanwei brand and their contributions to the sword industry. Well, with that, I think I'll end this discussion topic. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.